This year's match reaction for Everton 0, Tottenham 0. Not brilliant, but better from Everton today. 2 weeks on from our very sobering post-match after that Watford game. Matt Flusk, Ed McCosh and Mark Mosey are all back here in Rigby's again, and it was a bit better today, wasn't it? Mosey, I mean, loads of talk which we'll get into, but Everton looked arsed, and they haven't looked arsed over the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's incredibly hard to predict at the moment, isn't it? I mean, get your arse handed to you by one of the worst teams in the league, and then a fortnight later actually show up against one of the teams who on paper have got far more quality than us. I know they say that Evertonians are born and not manufactured, and I think that's true at the moment, because you quite simply couldn't make this shit up with this football team. But I think the nature of the game, and in particular the nature of the first half, is exactly what Everton needed it to be today. It was compact, it was aggressive. We were never really going to have the upper hand in terms of possession, because that's quite simply never the case with Everton, but we were never going to be the ones who had the more craft and guile and creating more open chances. And I think Richarlison knew, in particular from a personal point of view, he knew that was going to be the nature of his game today. I think he did really well in terms of just offering something to play off and some form of hold-up play, which obviously we've not really had with Solomon Rondon. But at least we can come back today, talk about a team going into an international break that, more importantly than anything, hasn't lost a game. We quite simply had to stop that run. But we've got not only a good team performance, but some good individual performances from some pretty surprising faces that have got us at least something to cling on to going into an international break.
Ed, any Greek mythology for us, sort of that performance today, or you're not out to them now?
No, I'm more contemporary now. I will give you a topical reference though. I think maybe one criticism is, in a week where COP26 taught us again that we need to look after the environment, it was a little disappointing we didn't recycle the ball more. Thank you. We were just moving it a little bit too quickly at times, and I think in the second half there was a really clear improvement. But the one thing I was really pleased with Everton today is we did everything together. It was as a unit. Sometimes we pressed high, sometimes we stayed back, and sometimes it was a bit in the middle, but everything we did was together. And I think that kept Richarlison in the game, because it's very easy for him to chase around the centre-backs while every other player is 40 yards behind. But there was someone behind him today. There was a Townsend or a Gray or a Gordon providing that support. And I think that we missed Calvert-Lewin so much today. There were so many crosses, especially in the first half. I was behind the goal in the park end, and I could almost see the ghost of Calvert-Lewin diving into some of those crosses. And it's not Richarlison's bag, it is simply not what he does. I think in the second half we played a little bit more towards how he likes to play, facing goal, ball over the top and not into feet. And that's where the penalty incident I'm sure we'll talk about, came from. It was him running towards goal. A bit more of that, we might have had more chances, but it's an okay performance today.
Matt, what did you make of it, mate?
Yeah, reasonably pleased. We stopped the rot, which is the main thing, and a clean sheet as well. It was not game really. I thought for the first half an hour or so we had the most possession we probably had all season, didn't we? And we didn't really know what to do with it. And I think that was Spurs' game plan, really. Conte's just come in and he must have looked at the tapes, looked at the way we played this season, knew that we were after nicking counter-attacks. So he's let us have the ball a bit more, and I mean, they were very compact and shut down today. It wasn't even 2 banks of 4, it was 1 bank of 10 at times. So, and we just didn't have, without Calvert-Lewin and Decore, we didn't have that drive to get through it. But overall, I'm pretty pleased, and eating my own words over Fabian Delph, because he was the engine in the middle of that midfield today for us.
We'll start off with Delph then Mose. I think we said on Monday you don't want to get too carried away with him, because an injury could potentially be around the corner of him just getting off the bus at the ground. And I think there was sort of a bit of one of them today where when he was brought up, everyone sort of had a bit of a sign, and he thought, well, first game for ages. It felt very much pre-planned, but it was sort of like a bit of a view into what Fabian Delph and Everton could have been like if he'd stayed fit and been able to put a run against them, because he's not a spectacular player by any means, but there's a good player in there if you can get him on the pitch, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he did the job for the vast majority of the game today that we got that glimpse of on Monday night against Wolves, didn't we? It's quite simply just someone who's got an intelligent and composed footballing brain, and it's disappointing that it's taken us this long to be able to say these words about him. And as you rightly say, we absolutely do not go overboard on players like this, because we know getting the consistency out of him in particular is a massive challenge. But it just looked like the midfielder that we've needed for so long in that holding role. And I think the thing that excites me about not necessarily him, but having a player of that ilk, is that it absolutely brings out the best in someone like Alan alongside him, because asking Alan to do that role is, I think we're all at that same stage now where that's quite simply not his game. He's been quite vocal in terms of very cutely saying that is not his game. So if it's not going to be Gbamin, if it's not going to be Davis, and I think the jury's out on both of those players, then until we can go and sign a long-term replacement for that holding role, Fabian Delph simply has to be the man to step up. But I think the thing I like about him is that he is the type of footballer that will give the ball away, but he'll take risks, he'll try and play forward passes, and he looks as though he's capable of making things happen at the start of a move, whereas you do look at Davis and Gbamin and that sort of player, and it's all a lot more safe. And I appreciate they are all defensive midfielders, but what you get in Alan and Delph is that, your possession retention may be more towards 70% than 95%, but they're the types of players who are going to find that ball out to your full-back or through to Richarlison and actually make something happen. And I think we are quite simply at the stage now, and from a numbers point of view, where he has to be involved. But I think he's gone beyond that today, and with a performance like that, he absolutely warrants his place in the side.
Yeah, it's mad to say about a player who's injured so often, but after Decore, he's probably our most athletic midfielder, isn't he? And having legs back in there again today did really help.
What a terrifying indictment that is. Yeah, God.
Because he eats up the ground, doesn't he? He can get across. I think Matt compared him to an octopus before in regards to how often he got in the right place and nicked the ball back. And for an hour today, he did look like that combative midfielder that we know he can be.
Yeah, and Moses hit the nail on the head. What his role does is it releases Alan, who does play further forward, who is a bit more maybe experimental with his passes, and we saw bits of it today. I thought Alan maybe could have kicked on a little bit more, but Delph was providing the cover, the blanket for him, and there were some very, very good interceptions from Delph today, which showed he was reading the game well. His absence from the game through injury isn't causing too much of a problem for him, clearly. And we were getting these sounds coming out from the training ground, weren't we, this week, that Delph is star of the week in training, and gave him a big gold sticker and all that.
It was almost like they were mentally preparing us for him playing at the weekend.
Yeah, it was a bit propagandary, I thought, but he did his job today, and evidently he's not ready for 90. It was obviously premeditated that it happened on the hour mark, him coming off. But he did a good job today, and I thought it was nice to see a balanced midfield, and a balanced midfield clearly is the difference for Everton. You can divide our good and our bad performances down the middle based on if our midfield's been solid and if our midfield's not been solid. And today it worked.
One other player I wanted to mention, Matt, before we get into the controversial calls, we could say maybe one controversial, one definitely not controversial, is Ben Godfrey, who had a bit of a shocker on Monday night, playing left back, played that back pass that effectively killed the game. Looked a lot more on it today, and I have to admit, before the game today I would have been hesitant about playing him. It sounds a bit mad now, but I might have played whole game next to Keane. But he's had a tough time recently, and I mean, albeit up against the very sedate Harry Kane, Son Heung-min looked like he couldn't really handle the occasion, but credit to Ben Godfrey, because I think he stuck to his task really well today and showed himself to be the player that he was, a bit more like last season.
Yeah, absolutely, and they worked well as a unit, Keane and Godfrey. Like, every time one of them might have missed the tackle or missed the clearance, the other one was there to mop up. I suppose the only thing lacking for Godfrey at the moment, because he does seem to be getting back to his defensive best, was just his distribution. Too many times he sent the ball up the field, and a couple of times they nearly cleared the park end.
Channeling his inner Alan Stubbs.
Absolutely, yeah. But no, I've got no complaints at all with him today. And he nearly had a goal as well, didn't he? He had our first shot on target somehow. I don't know what he was doing there, but because he wasn't even off a set piece, was it? He just suddenly ended up the field. But no, I'm pleased with him. Hopefully he's getting some specific training and conditioning to get him back to his best, because we all know he has issues with long COVID and stuff. So fingers crossed, the best is yet to come to him.
I think he's definitely got enough credit in the bank to stand by watching him go through this kind of semi-awkward phase of how he fits into the centre of defence. I, for one, have seen enough of him at full-back to know that and I know that the season before we had Mason Holgate playing himself into a really good run of form, and we were all talking about this, player of the season, future captain, etc. But I stand by the fact that it still, and did at the time, feel very different with Ben Godfrey. It does feel like there's substance to him being the core of Everton's defence for years to come. And yes, it's been a little bit hit and miss, but it's exactly the same in terms of every area of the pitch for Everton, and the partnerships and the couplings of players are changing so frequently that there isn't really any potential for the partnerships that you ideally need at central defence to grow. And I think the thing I've liked about the bad phase of form that Ben Godfrey has had is that we are at least sticking with him with Rafael Benitez. As you said before the game, Matt, you wouldn't be surprised to see Mason Holgate come in, because quite simply they were all as bad as each other on Monday night, and it was any 2 from 3 really today. But I think at least Rafael Benitez has seen what we've seen in the previous 12 months, and that there is real substance to this lad being a top level centre half. And as much as we haven't seen it in recent weeks, you do get the glimpses today of someone who, albeit against an out of form Harry Kane, is able to keep him quiet for long spells of the game. And I know that Tottenham are getting used to a new manager, and in particular a new way of playing and a new formation, but to keep people like Lo Celso and Son and Lucas Moura, and in particular Harry Kane, quiet for the spells that Everton did today, it's credit not only to Ben Godfrey but to Michael Keane and the rest of that back four.
Yeah, exactly as the two fellas have said, the key term is unit today. Every player was backed up, and it meant a clear reduction in these individual errors which have been costing us, because that's really what's been our Achilles heel in the last few weeks. I did go into Greek mythology, sorry.
How long have you been thinking about that for? Between your turns?
It just came to me, but that's kind of the thing as well, because Godfrey is the exact profile of player we want at centre back at the moment. He is big, he's athletic, he's good in the air, he takes the ball away, he's got all the tools. But when he was being left on his own, when players get pulled apart, he was making these individual errors and beating himself up about it, you can tell.
Yeah.
And it was causing some poor performances from him. The recovery from COVID is obviously the physical element to it, and only he knows exactly what he's gone through. But mentally as well, he sometimes had no friends on the field.
Yeah.
And today, everyone was supporting each other. And we saw the best of Godfrey. And it's nice to see him bursting forward and making these chances and having shots and things. And if he's well covered, he can do that. And that's the bottom line, really.
Yeah. And left one on Son as well today, which apparently, which is quite nice. But I mean, we'll get on to the decisions now. I'll come to you first, because I know there's some disagreements around the table here. Two major ones. We'll start with the controversial one. It was right in front of me, that penalty today, when Lloris took Richarlison out. I thought absolutely nailed on. I couldn't believe it when the referee was even taking his time to deliberate it with VAR, and then when he goes over to the screen, you're thinking, oh no, we all know what's coming here. It looks like Lloris sort of caresses the top of the ball a little tiny bit before taking Richarlison down. What did you make of it, mate? Because I'm sort of sat here and I don't know what the rules are in regards to that, whether that's a penalty or not at the moment.
There are two elements involved here, and the first element is contact. So it doesn't matter the level of contact with the ball, it's the contact between the players which makes the difference. For example, if I tackled someone and got the ball fairly and also punched them in the face at the same time, it's still violent conduct, because it's denying the player the opportunity to play the ball. And I think maybe if Richarlison stays down, it's a different decision for the referee. But the fact that Lloris has wrapped his arm around his leg, that's the contact. It denies him the ability to play as he would have played the ball. It's a foul. The second element is, we've been told the role of VAR and of reviews is to help us to overturn clear and obvious errors, to make sure that referees aren't making clear errors. And if the referee makes a decision, then they're going to stick with that decision. So I don't understand what thought process has gone into it that's allowed the referee today to say, that's a clear error, it's obviously not a penalty, I must overturn that decision. That's where I cannot fathom what's happened there, because eventually you have to, in cricket they call it the umpire's call, if there's a grey area, you go with the decision that's made on the field. And so how will they come to that decision today? I can't work that out, and that's why I'm still annoyed by it.
What did you think of it, mate?
Yeah, same as Ed. The fact that he's brushed the top of the ball shouldn't make a difference, because okay, you could say he's hit the ball and he's made it change direction slightly, but he hasn't knocked it out of play. The ball's still active. So the next thing Richarlison wants to do is get after that ball, but he can't because his legs have been completely wrapped around by Lloris's arms. And I said it was a good play in the NFL. Like, that's exactly how you want to take down a running back. But you can't do that in the Premier League. And Ed's right, it wasn't a clear error. It was a marginal call. You can see it either way. I've been saying all the way home that if that was the other way around, it wouldn't have got overturned, and we would have heard all the reasons on Sky Sports from Dermot why it wasn't overturned. Everyone would have been fine with it being a penalty. But yeah, you can't be going to the screen and flipping a coin basically and saying, well, I'm going to come down on the 51% of this 50-50 chance. You know what I mean? It's just typical of the way that the referees apply the rules in this league. And I mean, I'm asking myself all sorts of paranoid questions now. Like, if it wasn't Conte's first Premier League game, would he have done that? Do you know what I mean? Because referees are only human beings. They don't want to be on the wrong end of headlines. You know, they don't want to be under pressure and stuff like that. And we've seen it in the past where a referee has been dragged over the coals for what is really a 50-50 decision against the wrong team. All of a sudden, they've been stood down the next week. So
it takes a brave man to be on the wrong end of the bullens, though.
Well, you can have Seamus Coleman that after the Watford game, but
I mean, Mark Mosey, the cop-out, thinks it was the right decision.
Oh well, I'll caveat all of that by saying that I was going purely off Twitter calls, and having just watched the replay back, I think I echo everything that you lads have said in terms of there being absolute minimal contact on the ball. If we're going to talk about that being clear and obvious, then I mean, I've just had to watch that video back with a magnification camera on it to see if Hugo Lloris has touched the ball. I mean, if that is the barrier of clear and obvious, then we're going to have every single decision reviewed. And I think the most frustrating element for me is that the sheer pantomime of the referee going over to the sideline as if he's not going to listen to the 5 lads down in London who've watched it and called him wrong. And I think that's... I'm urging referees every time I see a controversial call like this to just stick by the guns for what is simply not a decision that they've got clearly and obviously wrong, which was obviously the call today. But VAR is just the enemy of someone like Richarlison, unfortunately, isn't it? Because we all know that any sniff of wrongdoing or a foul, that lad is going to try and exaggerate it to its very core. And as much as I think he's hard done to today, that these are the ones that are unfortunately just going to start going against Richarlison, because he's of that nature where referees are out for him and calling for diving, calling him for petty fouls, and he's unfortunately not a player who's going to benefit from any form of technological progress. But yeah, you can call that the non-controversial one, Matt, but I think the other one is incredibly frustrating, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, I mean, I don't know if any of you remember what happened afterwards. Did Richarlison get up and try and got up?
He got straight back up and he even took the ball around Lloris, but by the time he'd taken the ball around Lloris, the penalty had been given. Yeah. So he might have tried to have a shot or play at someone in the centre. Yeah. I think all credit to Richarlison. He went down because he was running at high momentum, and I'm getting deja vu to Andy Johnson. I swear it's like the same thing over again. Players going at high momentum, if there's impact on them, even if it's a small amount of impact, they're going to go down.
Yeah.
Like, you try running at full speed and then someone clips you on the ankle, that's what happens. And I think it would be really harsh on Richarlison if reputation has played a part in that. I cannot, even now, having seen it 10 times over, work out how the decision can be overturned, and that's what's really causing me angst.
Yeah, and Mason Holgate. In fact, Matt, before we speak about Mason Holgate, Goodison was great after that, wasn't it? Because obviously everyone was very indignant after the penalty wasn't given, and then someone made a decision to show it on the big screen, and everyone completely lost the plot. All the players were legging it towards the referee, pointing at the screen as if he's going to go back and have another look at it.
Good to say that the fella who showed that on the screen today, now that you are jobless, you're more than welcome to come and join us, and we'll all buy you a pint.
But we haven't really had that this season yet, have we? You know, we had the little flurry against Burnley where it was, you know, just goal after goal after goal, and it was brilliant. But I mean, that's the first time since we've been back that we've had that properly angry, we hate everybody sort of atmosphere at Goodison again.
Oh yeah, love it, absolutely love it, and hopefully we'll have a couple more now that we've got quite a few night games coming up.
Yeah.
But yeah, even if it is false indignation, it gets the players up. You saw Andros Townsend a couple of times running past the Bullens when we got a throw in, like throwing his arms up like they do and getting everyone G'd up. But yeah, I mean, showing it on the big. I think they are obliged to show it on the big screen now.
Oh,
I think that's part of it. Yeah. So especially like offsides and stuff like
I
that.
think they meant to show offsides, but not anything like that. I don't know. I'm not sure they're supposed to show that.
But I mean, why not?
Oh yeah.
If it's overturned, it's not meant to be controversial. So yeah, it should quell the crowd rather than get them G'd up. So the fact that it did make everyone lose their heads for like 10 seconds kind of shows how it was just a ridiculous 50-50 call.
I mean, they could have showed Lloris punching the ball cleanly away and everyone still would have moaned on me. Said it was a penalty. So just show replays of anything, lads, on the screen and we'll all kick off. But Holgate, I'll come to you again, Matt, on this one. After the Watford game, you used the word unprofessional to describe the whole team, which was absolutely right. That was Mason Holgate today, wasn't it, in a nutshell? I mean, I don't know why he came on, first and foremost. That in itself I thought was a mad decision. I don't know if Alan had a knock or anything, but playing a three-man midfield, which had the centre-back and a winger in it, was a bit of a mad shout, I've got to say, from the manager. But regardless, Mason Holgate's got to do more. He got caught so many times beforehand, lost the ball when Lo Celso hit the post, which could have easily cost us, and he makes the tackle, which again, he wins the ball, and maybe that negates everything that happens afterwards, as we've said. We don't know, but obviously not in this instance. But just no need for it, was there? I think he knows exactly what he's doing. He's trying to leave one on the lad, and he could easily just nick it away and get everything going, but instead he does something a bit rash, which is sort of unfortunately becoming his trademark, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And even before the red card, he was all over the place. When he came on, I thought we were going three at the back for some reason and pushing the wing backs up, but yeah, he was just a bit of a mess. He stood on top of the ball and fell over it a couple of times and got caught. And yeah, straight away the red card. I mean, a couple of people around me were like, no, come on, you can't check that. I was like, nah, he's off. I thought he'd broken his leg. He fully connected with him, and he leant back to make sure he did. It was just absolutely stupid. And maybe because we haven't seen him much, there's sort of this lingering thing in your head, like, he'll grow out of that. But he's like 25 now, isn't he? He's not a kid no more, and he can't be doing things like that. And I mean, that's 3 big fixtures now he's missing, isn't it?
City, Brentford, and the derby he won't be playing for.
Yeah, so well,
I mean, Ed saved, thank God. I mean, he probably did do us a favour in the end because he was playing that bad, wasn't he?
Yeah. He was, but it still leaves us short. But thankfully, Branthwaite was on the bench, so it looks like he's going to be come back to fitness. But yeah, unprofessional. It was just daft, and it really could have cost us towards the end. I mean, there was 4 minutes added on. It became like 6 or 7, didn't it? Because that whole debacle took about 2 minutes, and it's not what we need to see. And I was having flashbacks to Watford, just thinking, is this going to be another collapse? But thankfully they kept their heads and everything. But yeah, it was stick on red, absolutely stick on. It was like Morales on Suarez in the derby years ago.
Yeah, but at least Holgate got the ball in that one. But
At least VAR didn't exist then. But yeah, I mean, before we go on to the tackle, the substitution, as you rightly said, to go up against Højbjerg and Ndombele and Lo Celso going into Skip stayed on, didn't he? Excuse me, but to go into that last 10 minutes with Tom Davies and Mason Holgate behind Andros Townsend, I mean, it's the flimsiest of Everton central midfields that you could ever wish to see at the moment, and I think that was incredibly risky. I think we all knew what 18 minutes, if we were drawing, was going to look like for Everton today on the back of 3 defeats, and I think a point was too precious not to take at that stage. But very, very questionable to turn to Mason Holgate in that situation, and I know I've got absolutely nothing to back this up with Jean-Philippe Gbamin, but if you bring in Mason Holgate on in that situation and not him, then it says massive amounts in terms of how much Rafael Benitez trusts him at the moment. In terms of the tackle, unfortunately, Mason Holgate is the type of intelligent centre-half who knows exactly what he's doing in that situation. I wouldn't put him down as an agricultural or boisterous centre-half. We've seen plenty of those at Everton in recent years, but the fact that he's intelligent enough to go and step in...
He's not like a lumbering shed, is he?
Definitely not, no. We've championed his footballing brain in the past and his ability to step into central midfield and get on the ball. In the same breath, he knows exactly what he's doing in 50-50 situations like that. He knows he's first to the ball, he plays it cleanly, and there's absolutely no reason to leave one on him like he did. Again, I've not seen the video, but if the stills after it are anything to go by, how he is that far up whoever it is, the Tottenham player's leg, it's just totally reckless. And unfortunately, we're not in an age of this sport where you're able to get away with that sort of stuff anymore. I don't think we'll miss him, because so much of what we've seen from him in recent times suggests that he is absolutely nowhere near being pivotal for this 11, but that's all on the assumption that Yerry Mina is able to work his way back into full fitness. And I think, as Matt has rightly said, we are not in a position at the moment, be in good form or poor form, where we can just throw players away for 3 games, and that's unfortunately what we're looking at.
I have a serious problem with the word intelligence having been used. I'll put it this way: Spurs used to hold the crown for having the most stupid player in the Premier League, but then they carted off Serge Aurier and he's gone. And I think Mason Holgate is one of the contenders to the crown. Every time I watch him play, I think he's an absolute moron. I can't believe the number of times he gets pulled out of position, number of times he makes stupid fouls, number of times he goes off on his own, doing his own thing. And this foul today is just another one of the catalogue of issues I've got with Mason Holgate. I must admit, it's somewhat of a vendetta, so I may be a bit biased. But he just does stupid things every time he plays, and it's so antagonising to watch. And I cannot fathom why Benitez thought he'd be okay to anchor the midfield. There must be something seriously wrong with Bama if he can't play 10 minutes. And Holgate, once again for me, total lapse of concentration. I don't believe there was malice in the foul. I don't think he's trying to kill him, but he does a bloody good effort at it.
That shouldn't be the defence of that tackle, though, should it? No. Death was not necessary.
It's the difference between murder and manslaughter. I've got a serious issue with Holgate, I really do.
I think the disappointment for me is how quickly he's been able to go to regress to the point where he is now. I mean, I bring the word intelligence into it. We spoke about this lad's maturity.
Ed is not having this, by the way.
if you think about the Chelsea game at home during sort of semi-lockdown, when 3,000 fans were able to go back in, I think that preceded the away game at Leicester, where we looked really good, and we had that sort of 4 centre-halves across the back. He looked as though he was able to have the maturity to step out of position and play a role that had been designated by whoever Everton's manager was at that time. And as much as I'm not going to defend the lad at all for that, it's so demoralising to see how quickly a promising young footballer can go into someone who you think is massively dispensable for this football club at the moment. And I know we've seen rumours over the summer and in recent weeks, but he stinks of someone who Everton are looking to get rid of and make some space and some finance for, unfortunately.
I'm sorry to say it, but I'd be delighted. I really am. I'm on the warpath here. We thought he was intelligent. We thought he was intelligent because he could step out and play a pass, which fine, yes, he can do. But he's the only centre-half at Everton I've ever seen, 1, get a yellow card for a foul on the right wing, which he's done multiple times, and 2, he used to play long balls to Bernard's head. Sometimes, at an attacking sense, he plays the ball nicely, but sometimes in defence, he's like a mop with a football shirt on. There's no brain operating behind that. And today, he's left us in the lurch, and I'm angry with him. I really am. I know there's only a minute left, but Benitez had to use up his final sub. Maybe he could bring an attacking player on. Maybe. I don't think he was going to. Yeah. But we've had to give up entirely at that point. And just go, right, that's it. Point, defend it, because he's done something stupid yet again and left us in the lurch. And despite the fact that he's young, and actually we need to get the age of the squad nice and down, he's one of the first players I'd be happy to see leave.
Yeah. I feel like the worst punishment for Mason now would be to let Ed in and just have a word about how incredibly upset he was. It was very much, I'm not angry, I'm disappointed.
Yeah, that's it. I'm like a parent. I'm like a teacher, maybe. Just a kid in school who can spell, but he's not trying and he's sitting at the back picking his nose. That's Mason Holgate.
Oh dear me. I remember. I feel how you're feeling now, Ed. After the game, we went to Swansea, and Morales got sent off 0-0 late on, and he nearly cost us that day. Yeah. And I was livid with him after that. And it's sort of one of those that I imagine that if you're a player on that pitch, you've been playing poorly recently. You've ran your bollocks off all day. It's been a hard graft. You've not played particularly well, but you've really battled for that point, and everyone's put a shift in. And then someone does something stupid like that, which could potentially cost you. You're not gonna be happy with them, are you? You're not gonna look at them in the dressing room and think, you're part of all this. And I think it's the sort of thing that you can do that can really be disengaging from the squad. Just one other thing I want to mention quickly before we finish. I mentioned lumbering shed there. It was lumbering shed there, Matt. Harry Kane, Jesus Christ, what has happened to him as a footballer? Used to be a serious, fearsome prospect, and he just looked completely unarsed and unfit today.
Yeah, one season wonder, you know.
Yes. I mean, I do realise that in the return game he's obviously going to lever in 5 goals or something like that. But at the moment, I mean, Man City must be thinking, we got off with one there.
Well, yeah, and the whole saga, if you could call it that, because I think a saga needs multiple elements to a story, whereas there was only one element to that story, which was Harry Kane's agent brother decided he was going to go somewhere for £100+ million and nobody wanted him, and then he had to just suddenly tuck his tail between his legs and say, oh, actually I'm staying. But the whole Spurs front line, they weren't missing a man in that front line, and they could have inflicted some damage on us if they were after it, but they just didn't seem to fancy it at all. Maybe it was Conte just saying, take stock, just stop the rot and everything. But I don't know, in the words of the great man Neville Southall, they're not very good. They're just not a good side, really. They seem a bit disjointed, they seem just a bit imbalanced, and we were going through the team heads, weren't we, before kick-off, and you start at the front, good players, and as you get further back, it's like, who were they? I mean, who was that one in the midfield? I didn't even know who he was.
Ollie Skip. Yeah. I mean, he's English, he's young, and he plays for Spurs, so he'll play for England at some point.
He's a regen.
He's a regen. So there's something in their contracts where they have to play for England at some point. Yeah. But that's the thing, isn't it? You know, Kane was atrocious today. He was atrocious. He was a fridge on wheels. He was terrible. There was one point where he beat a man with a nice little nutmeg and then didn't know what to do next. He was shocked that he'd done something.
He looks like he's about to fall over every time he runs with the ball.
Yeah, he was poor, but I stopped to think of it. I think, did any Spurs player play well today? I cannot name a single one, not even their defence. The fact they kept the clean sheet is fine, but I don't think they were that special.
Maurice the shit house.
No, yeah. Son was awful, thank goodness. And, you know, that was pretty funny. Their midfield was bad, and that's it. The further back you get with that Spurs team, the more dredge there is. Ben Davies and Eric Dyer are just atrocious. They're not good, and I think that's kind of the thing. There's the one disappointment for me, really, is I think they were there to be got at. That's just the one thing where maybe we could have punished them a bit more. But again, if we have a Doucouré, if we have a Calvert-Lewin for certain, perhaps we do that. It's just one of those where I feel like we Spurs, I think, will improve because they are going to start playing for their manager, and there's enough quality there. Now, today was the sweet spot where they were all a bit all over the place. I'm not sure the manager necessarily picked the team. He's only been in charge a few days. He would have had, obviously, the main say, but he wouldn't have been totally sure. Was there an opportunity there? I think there was. But I'm going to take the point gladly and move on.
Yeah, you mentioned Son there, Ed. My one regret is that when he was finally hauled off to a chorus of boos, I just wish that we'd been like 2-0 up, because there would have been a chorus of cheers and
I'll just say for the record, I was saying boo Min Son.
I think this big question for you most to finish off: Kane or Rondon?
Oh wow, I don't think he's quite fallen to that level yet. But yeah, I think the disjointed nature of Tottenham today is probably down to how adamantly confident Antonio Conte will just generally be as a football manager. I think that's what you inherit when you get a proven serial winner like Conte, is that he's not going to come in after a week and let this side be anything other than what he wants it to look like going forward, be that a total change of formation or a total change in style. And as Ed has rightly said, they were a team who probably were there to be got at today, but there is absolutely nothing predatorial about Everton at the moment. Maybe if we come into this on 4 points from the last 3 games, we probably go into that last 15 minutes thinking a whole lot differently about the last, about what sort of result reflects any form of positivity for us. But from a Harry Kane point of view, I think the awkward lost sense of opportunity is both on him and on Tottenham as a football club, because he's probably not going to get that opportunity to go to Man City again, and Tottenham are not going to be able to recoup £100 million for a footballer who looks relatively average at the moment. And I know that we'll all sit here in April and listen back to this and chew on the fact that he's just scored a hat-trick against a measly Everton side, but it certainly looks as though the Harry Kane that has terrorised us for years might simply not be there anymore.
Yeah, 7-season wonder, maybe you could say.
He was only really good for one of them.
Was it him at the post?
No,
Chelsea.
Yeah.
I thought that was going wide, that.
I mean, I would have feared for Mason Holgate if that had gone in after the way he just lost the ball. You know, but
thanks to the arcane rule, it means hitting the post isn't a shot on target.
They
They didn't have a shot on target today. Jordan Pickford did nothing.
No, he didn't.
He didn't have to claim a cross. He didn't have to deal with a corner. Actually, our set-piece defending was all right today.
Did they only have one corner in the game?
There you go. They had the free kicks rather than in a corner. They didn't do anything. And I mean, our substitutions are a little questionable, but how weird was Spurs' changes?
Yeah.
Bringing
Yeah,
on
they were.
Doherty for Reguilon, so a right back for a left winger.
Yeah.
Playing him at left back, playing Domblé on the left wing. Lo Celso just sort of drifting around the middle. It was baffling. I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on when they made those changes. And it was a 0-0 football game, wasn't it? We can talk here for 3.5 hours. It comes down, it was a 0-0 football game, and we got what we deserved.
It's a good time to play Tottenham. It's just never a good time to be Everton. That's
Fair enough. I won't use to make a point of singling out an opposition player like Kane, but I was just so struck by how often he was. Usually he's
We've unfortunately been blessed by seeing him in his pomp in so many games.
But yeah, we'll leave it there anyway. But yeah, that is it from us. 0-0 for the Blues ahead of the international break. Step forward at least after some horrible performances this week. Cheers to Mark, cheers to Ed, cheers to Matt. That has been your post-match reaction. We'll speak to you again very soon here on the Blue Room.
How do you know if your little one's back to themselves again? Maybe it's the simple sound of them playing contently.
Or those adorable sounds when they're fast asleep.
Calpol, let's kids be kids.
Calpol Vapor Plug and Nightlight. Up to 8 hours of nighttime comfort. Available at your local Sainsbury's, here in Burnley. Calpol sugar-free infant suspension for infants 2 months plus, weighing over 4 kilograms and not premature. Contains paracetamol for pain and fever relief. Calpol Vapor Plug and Nightlight, non-medicine, always read the label. How do you know if your little one's back to themselves again? Maybe it's